Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
So this is another episode, and today we have Chris on. Chris, welcome, and how is your day going so far?
For Monday, it's going awesome. We got two crews working. One crew's doing interior selective demo, and we have another crew working on the heavy equipment on another site there. So it's busy as always here.
Nice. So how did you get involved in the business?
So my name's Chris. I run 431 Project Solutions here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I'm 28, been in the industry just about 10 years now, 10 or 11. Started as a laborer, worked my way up. When I actually went out on my own, what I like to tell people is I quit my $200,000 a year job to eat craft dinner for 4 years.
Yeah.
And, in that sense, I worked my way up the ladder. And when I left, I was actually a civil superintendent for one of the big contractors here in Canada. And I just got tired of the corporate world, and I got tired of giving my time to other people's success. And so I said, I'll go out on my own. And that's exactly what I did. So just about 4 years ago, I started 431 Project Solutions, and we are a heavy construction, demolition, and disposal company.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was corporate. I was a consultant until about 2017. My boss sold the company to one of our clients who ran a massive company. And I realized, okay, so I'm doing all right, but what is the point? I have nothing to show. Like, obviously you're making good money just like you were. But you know what? They could can you. Or something happens, a new boss, client leaves, and that's your client or whatever. And then what are you supposed to do with what you have going on? You have something to show for it. So is there any dream one day of selling the company, or you think you'll keep it forever?
Eventually if you talk to my girlfriend, she'll say sell it, but, I do want to see where it goes. Obviously, it's the future holds whatever it holds, and I just try and take it day by day. That's part of how I stay pretty stress free for the most part. Don't look at everything going on at once. Just take it step by step by day, and if you do what you love, you won't work a day in your life, and I truly believe that, and I do it. So, in that sense, I guess, yes, eventually I would like to sell, because eventually I'll get tired of this, but we definitely got quite a few years yet.
Would there be like a magic number you've thought of, or a dream number down the road where you're like, hey, if someone came to me and the check was X amount of dollars, it would be a no-brainer?
I've actually already been there. I've already done that. I went out on my own when I was 19 years old. Wasn't old enough to go out on my own, and learned a lot of hard lessons. So I started a dirt work and excavation company then. I held it for just over 2 years, and then I actually got bought out for my client list. So that being said, I got bought out for my clients, and not particularly the company itself, but it just went along with it. So I have been down that road. Do I regret selling it? No, I had a lot more to learn in the industry, and selling it, it was based on the fact that I was still young and I knew I could do it again. And we live and we learn. per se. And do I have regret for selling it? Yes, but to a certain degree, I don't, because there was so much more to learn once I carried on from ownership and got into this position of civil superintendency and stuff like that, right? So yeah,
That's pretty cool. So maybe one day, but
yeah,
big pie in the sky, you're focused day to day. That's cool. All right. Yeah, some people, they're like, hey man, if I got a $50 million check, it's game over. If I got a $30 million check, it's game over. You know, that some people
money
have
talks,
that pie in the sky. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about, you know, within reason, some of those lessons that you care to share.
yeah.
Tell me some of the good and the bad of the business. You know, what should people watch out for? And then after this, we'll go on to the nice parts. Like, what are some of the awesome pieces of business?
Yeah, no. As far as hard lessons, when you think you know the basics of it, you don't. And I know it's pretty cliche to say or a cop out per se, but know what you're good at and do that. Uh, One of the biggest lessons I learned was the fact of trying to not really be a general contractor, but in a sense, I guess it was that at the time. You know, you hear everyone, you know, I'm starting a contracting company or I'm starting a demo company. And well, what do you do? Well, we do this. It's almost better if you can round out a few good things that you're good at and then pursue that. And the reason I say
Mm,
that is because logistically speaking, I know I did it when I started my first company and I started this one too, actually. You know, you're always gun ho to, you know, impress your clients, get more clients. And, you know, someone's got to remember that you can only do so many things in a day.
right.
You know, more so logistically speaking, if I specialize in, say, 10 to 15 things, yeah, I can do those things well. But if I zero them in on 3 or 4 things, you'll be just as busy. I promise you that. You know, and it's just in the sense of finding what you're really good at and what you're just good at, if that makes sense. You know,
Yeah. So you would
uh,
tell people like it's cool to be a generalist at first, but always be on the hunt for what the sweet spot is
yeah,
because there are opportunities in that sweet spot. You don't need to think we need to do 10 things forever, like your Amazon, you know, like Jeff
yeah,
Bezos started with books, is what I always say, you know, to our clients and people like, hey, let's hone in. Let's be, you know, laser focused. Once we have the bankroll to be more laser focused, but always seek the laser. Don't forever seek to be fat. Like you want to tighten it up. Interesting. Okay.
no, like that's one lesson. Another lesson is everything said and done. Be humble. I
Mm,
know that's a big one that this industry doesn't really see too much of. Uh, there's always another client, and you know if one client doesn't work out, that's part of the game. And you know, lots of people go out in the industry on their own, and you know they have a few contacts, and that's awesome. But I've seen guys break companies over the fact that they lost one client, and
wow.
it happens every day. You know,
Hmm.
you just get back up on the horse. You got to keep riding. You got to keep going. You know, you can't let anything stop you. And, you know, kind of in turn with that, you're, I don't really like using this term, but you're always going to have haters. And that's just the way,
Mm,
you know, you cannot please anybody. And I guess that's a lesson in itself. When
right.
I first started 431, uh, I, I would work 21-hour days on between 3 different sites and 2 crews just to keep everybody happy. And I was just burning myself.
Mm,
And, you know, I had to take a step back and realize, okay, first off, we're offering too many services. Secondly, we're too spread out. And third, we just can't compete logistically with other companies because of those reasons.
Right.
So, I then had to take a step back and we realigned the company into, what we do now is just heavy construction and different types of demolition, because that's where we would ride superior over our competition. And, in doing that, we lost a lot of revenue the year this, but, it's coming back now and we're in year 2 of the realignment and it's going well. So, don't try and please everyone, because at the end of the day, you burn yourself out, and in turn, the company might suffer because of it. Now, I was fortunate enough to realize that, but it comes in time, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and at least you realize that how many people the companies go out of business. They never focus. It's just boom, all of a sudden. So props to you for realizing it, because it's been painful perhaps or challenging, but the balance of the rest of your career is going to be so much better relative to being lazy or complacent or not even being smart enough to see that there's something you could tighten up. How about some of the fun stuff in the business? Like any crazy paydays? You don't need to get specific, but like any projects where you're just like, man, that was a cool project.
So part of what we do here at 431 is selective demolition. So what that basically entails, you ask anybody off the street, demolition is, they think of tearing houses down or tearing buildings down. I know you had a guest last week that is doing 20-story apartment buildings. That's awesome. We're not really in the business to do that per se. Now, we are a demolition company. We do hold a valid commercial demolition license. We can attack the 20-story building if we really, really wanted to, but that's not our niche per se.
Right.
Select demolition is basically the act of going into a building, removing certain things, certain aspects of the building, but keeping the building intact for future renovation. Kind of similar to guys like, I know you've had some guests lately in the restoration business. Kind of goes in aspect of that, but more preservation, I should say. We have a project right now on a building that was built in 1908, and we're bringing it right down to the brick and everything. And then our general contractor comes in and actually updates all the utilities, all the plumbing, all the electrical. And so, yeah, we were brought in there to complete the scope of basically removing all the old systems, so to make way for all the updated and modernized facilities.
Super cool. All right. Any crazy payday? Again, you don't need to go into profit versus revenue, but maybe something like, what was the project that you were like, man, that's what I'm in the business for? We took great care of them, of course, but also like I ate steak that night, or I don't know. I had a good alcoholic beverage that night, or whatever, sort of celebrations.
So when I started this business, so a little bit about me, I'm a farm kid. That's where the work ethic comes from. My dad actually runs a scrap metal business, and so I appreciated the part a couple of weeks ago about scrapping, because
it's fascinating.
That kind of runs in the family here. When I started the business, my dad always joked about how I would be bringing truckloads of scrap to him when I made it, per se. So going on about a month ago, we started this project of restoration of this building from 1908, which turns out all of the plumbing facilities in the building are either brass, copper, or lead.
Wow.
So now the lead, we got to follow some environmental stuff, just the same as asbestos would be. And we are running across asbestos quite a bit. Now,
Sure.
There are certain laws per jurisdiction, right, as per our city on what we need to follow, and we just sub that part out. That being said, the copper and the brass utilities in the building, well, the other day I went to my dad's scrap metal yard with 3 pickup trucks full of copper, brass, and stainless steel plumbing.
Boy.
So, do I feel like I made it per se? In a way, yes, because kind of in a way following in what dad kind of made a joke around, kind of proved him to the fact that, hey, I am doing this and I did do it. But that's kind of why I mentioned to stay humble. Just because you have little victories like that doesn't mean you can slow down or, take the option of, not working the rest of the week or something like that. Just stay vigilant. And that's what we do here. So
yeah, it's funny that like your old dreams you're now achieving, I would guess. And now you have bigger, newer dreams and I've seen this in our business, you kind of look past yourself.
Yeah.
But it's hard at first to look past yourself. You have to be kind of, I don't want to say insular, but that's kind of what it takes. And then you get past that if you're not an egocentric person. Like with you, it seems like super about your team, super about your clients, very selfless. I'm kind of the same way, almost to a fault. We'll do it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, as far as my team goes, I have an awesome team behind me, including I got guys that have been with me right from the start. And you know what? They didn't lose faith when we ran into obstacles when we were younger. And, I got to give a shout out to my girlfriend, Jane. She's been around the company from the start as well. And,
Cool.
It's without a good team behind you, you will not make it in this industry. And I'm a firm believer in, if I didn't have a team, I wouldn't have a company, because at the end of the day, they are the company. And at the end of the day, if you look after your client, you look after your team, and you look after yourself, there's nothing stopping you.
Yes. Let me ask on that for our audience. How do you find good team members other than a lot of trials and tribulation? Like, do you have any insights there? You got to test them to see if they're honest. That's a big part of it, especially with the scrap these days.
So I don't mean to laugh at the question. It's a very good question. I'm probably going to sound the same as just about everybody else in the industry. It's so hard to find good guys.
Sure.
I don't know how it is in other cities, other countries, but demolition definitely attracts a crowd. And it's not necessarily the best of crowds. I know here in Winnipeg, we probably get 5 applications a day, just walk or stuff like that, which sounds awesome. But, that being said, we've had the obstacles of team members just leaving site with no other words. We've had we've had guys that didn't show up the next day. It's all the usual personnel problems, but at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut when it comes to staffing, and you got to give your guys a chance, because if like, I'm the type of person that I care where you came from, but I don't care where you came from. As long as you can show me that you can do the job, do it well, do it to spec, and care in the process, I'm all for giving anybody a chance. And like my senior guy here, he's been with us from the start, and he too has had days of no shows. And at the end of the day, we're all human, and if we can stay humble like that and help each other out, the future is prosperous.
That's cool. So for someone who is trying to break into the industry, or maybe they already are in the industry, how do they shine? Because I mean, I work with our clients day in, day out, and I see some of the opportunities we give them are actually employment. Obviously, the bulk of them that we do are for them to get more work for more estimates. So how does someone stand out when they're trying to work in the industry? Is it coming and shaking your hand? Is it coming to an office? Like, how do they really? Because the internet, let's be honest, you're getting 5 resumes a day on average. It sounds like, come on, like it's not like their profile picture is going to be on the resume and you go, oh, that's the one.
Exactly.
They're going to be a good worker. How do they actually get a job, or how do they get to the point to be on the team?
You know, I look, as every company is going to be different. You know, it is, in a way, it's personal preference. I can tell you what works for me. It may not necessarily work for others, but I just get them on the tools. You know, I look at a basic background. What I look for is callbacks. That's a big one for me. You know,
Okay.
if someone submits a resume but they never call me back, it shows the drive they have behind that application, right? So I remember, if I think back to my laborer days and how, you know, this industry is very hit and miss, right? You'll be hired for a contract and then the contract's done and you're laid off, right? It's very common in construction. And you know, whenever I ran into an obstacle like that, I would go out and apply at 10 or 20 other different places, but lots of superintendents, and me included in this, we always look for the guys that do the callbacks the week later. Or, you know, if guys come to site, we picked up a couple guys this way too. You know, I'll have people off the street just come, are you guys looking for workers?
Whoa. Huh.
Sure. You know, what can you do? What can you run? You know, can you run equipment? Can you finish concrete? Can you run a sledgehammer? You know, what do you want out of a career? That's one of the biggest questions I have. Now, we do job interviews. I'm not going to say all the time, because sometimes it just doesn't work out like that, and we do hire guys straight off the street, but we give them the proper orientation per se. And you know, we are core certified, which is a safety certification here in Canada that's nationwide. It's basically compiled of a safety manual, safety handbook, along with company protocols and procedures that we follow and my team follows. And that gives most new hires the structure that they're required for success. So
Cool.
It's
Awesome. Yeah. You're giving opportunities to people that are proving themselves. It's funny because we can touch on estimating and bids and things. It's possibly very similar. How do you get a deal? I don't care if it's through networking. I don't care if it's on the internet. Not that billboards are a common thing in the space, but whatever mechanisms you're using, there's still an art of following up and checking in and just being attentive. So it's ironic that sounds similar to the people who want to work for you guys. You have to do the same to work for others, you know, like follow the money kind of thing. Can you touch on that, of
Yeah, no, for
how
sure.
you guys get deals and how you securitize to get the ones that you want versus the ones maybe you don't even bid or aren't interested in?
So we where the company's at right now, we currently only have 3 to 4 clients. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but between these 3 or 4, we've been busy the better part of the last 3 years. So it's the level of quality that we provide to our clients that keeps us, you know, so lots of work gets handed down to us. In order to get through the door per se, go through the door, literally. That's the best advice I can give. You know, you got to remember these bigger companies, everyone wants to work for the bigger companies. I've heard it mentioned on your show before. Insurance companies, we do fire cleanups as well. So, and how we got into gigs like that per se is I would walk in there with a resume and a company profile, and I would ask for the most important person in that office, whether that is
That's hilarious.
whether that is the operations superintendent, general companies superintendent, VP of operations, blah blah. You just ask for the most important person and say, "I'm here, and I'm going to work for you guys."
That's amazing. Okay.
No, and I don't mean that in a demanding way at all, but
Yeah.
obviously don't go in there demanding work, because I doubt you'll get it. But just stay humble, stay yourself,
Mm,
and prove to them why you should be there.
right. Yeah, it's kind of like show up. I know in school, some people back in the day, they'd have issues, whether it's college or high school or whatever, and it's like, to me, I just said show up. Like that's like half the battle, and kind of it seems like you and I are on the same page. Like there are opportunities all over. If you don't think so, that's probably a you problem, not a world problem. We talked about kind of going wide versus going deep in terms of niching. You go deep, being wide. Maybe you have to do that for a while to be able to have the money or bankroll or experience, wisdom, really, to even go deep. But what do you think with the industry? Where are things going? It sounds like you guys are on fire. How about the business? How are the economics in the U.S. or in the world maybe concerning you or getting you excited for the future? Because it can go both ways.
I think the demolition industry as a whole is a very good industry to get into. We basically have to think about, as far as our environment per se, with the introduction of asbestos per se,
Mm-hmm.
people are starting to know more about our industry. And, I just say that word I know that's a scary word in demo. It doesn't always,
Abatement, asbestos, all the A words.
yeah, no, exactly. Like us personally, like I said earlier, we stay away from it because that's not our niche. We don't have the protocols or safety management system to manage such materials, but we work with a number. We have one company actually that we work in partnership with, and they do a very good job at it. So let them do the very good job, and we'll do our very good job over here, right? As
Mm,
far as a whole, you know, you got to think back all the way back to like World War I. Okay, people came home and they built everything. Okay, World
right.
War II, people came home after the war and built their lives, built their dreams. Right. Most of those buildings are coming to age now. Right. So,
Mm,
we got buildings that are built post World War I, post World War II, and so on and so forth. Lots of those buildings are starting to show their age, and it takes crews like mine to put them back together again. But before the guys put them back together again, we got to go in there and get all the old stuff out. So in saying that, it's a good industry to be in. It's very rewarding when we go into one of these buildings and the trims hanging down and the drapes are tore off the window, and like just like your stereotypical deserted building, and we get to give it a new life. And
mm,
at the end of the day, that's the most rewarding. When we get all the utilities out and all that selective demo is performed, and it's a clean slate, but it's a clean old state, right? So
mm.
I
That's
think that
cool. It's Oh man, what is it called? I was in Egypt recently, and you guys are kind of in that space where this is shocking to me. All throughout Egypt, and of course throughout the world, but the sand has just covered these structures, and the archaeologists, when they get, there's a lot of things that they have to go through to be able to dig, but they get to have, I guess you would say, the beauty of being able to uncover these incredible, outrageous things. And you guys are doing that in a certain way as well, where it's like, man, people 100 years ago used their hands. There wasn't a backhoe necessarily. There wasn't an excavator. There wasn't, a drill or what have you. They were using their hands to build this. You guys are getting to use your hands and these tools to give it new life and to get it the respect I guess it deserves, rather than, if it wasn't for companies like yours, someone would just say tear the whole thing down, if they were allowed to do that. Tear the whole thing down, let's build a new skyscraper on it, put up some glass and forget about the history.
And in saying that, we do have our heavy equipment division that's standing by if any of our clients need that as well. But you were talking about awarding parts of the job. Just the other day, one of our crew members found a newspaper from 1914, so that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It's that kind of stuff that we find. And then also, another reason why I started the company was to be waste conscious, because eventually our landfills are going to run out of room. And if we can do our part, so as a company as a whole, we actually devote time, effort, and money into the fact that 80% of what other demo contractors or general contractors throw out, whether it be in our disposal bins, on our projects, or what our scope of work is to be removed, 80% will either be recycled, reused, or sold for design and architecture.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so everyone else is just throwaway happy or get rid of it happy. And
when we start peeling the layers in these buildings, I mean, you get to see millwork from 1920, 1940, when carpentry was carpentry, and, we just saw it as such a shame that we're in a throwaway type of world. And if we can kind of shed some light on that while we complete our projects, then so be it. So I guess in turn, we would be classified as a salvage company as well. We do have 4 acres of land that is devoted to just salvage items that we pull. So, that's everything from a boiler to a farmhouse sink, cast iron tub, that sort of stuff. We all selectively take it out of there. And we have a number of clients that we don't actually do work for. They just come to the yard and I'll walk them through it, and they'll be leaving with 2 cast iron sinks and a rocking chair or something like that.
Cool.
So, there's a lot of designers and stuff like that on that side as well. So
okay, yeah, because I was gonna say, could you kind of pitch the idea to the audience at large of how or why they should do it that way? Because I'm in alignment with you. It sounds like there's a number of reasons to be about it.
The environmental aspect, obviously, is
Sure.
what us for it.
So what would you say about growing the firm? Is it something that you guys are looking to do and are actively networking, or how do you grow the firm? Are you able to take on more jobs?
So where we have progressed, when I first started the business, I thought I was Superman. I thought I did, I could balance, running a piece of equipment here and doing the manual labor here. But slowly burnout crept up on me. And I mean, it still does, but for the right reasons, right? Another thing that, if guys are new to the industry and they're wanting to soak up the tips and tricks, you're going to have growing pains, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
You're not going to have a perfect track record, and you're going to have a couple projects that haunt you and haunt you again. But the difference is if you learn from those, then ultimately you are growing. And that's kind of the cool part about business ownership as well, is just the fact of you see the business grow, but you also see yourself grow, right? So, we have two projects I can think of right now that, in all honesty, they were in our first year of business and it did not go well. Now, in saying that, we bit off more than we could chew. I myself did. And, we had to swallow our pride and go up to our client and say, we cannot complete this. Now, fast forward the 3 years now, I have since righted those wrongs, and two of those clients are still our clients. And
Cool.
that's kind of the it's one of the biggest things that I notice us growing as a company. It's just the fact of we had two clients very disappointed in us, and
Mm,
I had to do something about it, right? So, you know, yeah, you're not going to be perfect, so don't try and be. Just
right.
go out there, work hard, work safe, and the projects will come. As far as where we actually initially got projects, Facebook is a huge company grower for us.
Huh.
When I first started the business, I totally doubted. Everyone's like, "Oh, did you make a Facebook page?" Uh, current, currently we don't actually have a website, and
Right.
I know that kind of sounds, well, everyone has a website, and we are working on progressing that direction. But at the end of the day, I don't want to put ourselves as a company or myself in the position that we bite off more than we can chew again. So it's
Mm,
slow progression every year. Uh, we went from it just being me and my girlfriend Jane to now we hired one guy. Now we hired two guys, and like right now, full time, part time, we only have 5 employees, and that's where I want to be right now. You can run into the issue of growing too fast, and that's kind of what happened to us in the end of year one. Uh,
mm,
right around the time that we had these two projects that still haunt us, but it's simply because we grew so fast that our quality started slipping, and that's something that I would tell newcomers to the industry too, is do not compromise on your quality of work,
right.
and definitely do not compromise on safety. If you don't compromise
Mm,
on those two, you'll be fine.
yeah. And it's funny because in business, there's this whole thing of like, grow big, grow fast. It's all about the revenue. It's all about the profit. And it's like, all right, it is for someone who's going to stick around for a year or two. That's
Yeah.
great. And then you're going to go bankrupt or you're going to lose it all or jump off a bridge or something crazy.
Yeah.
The real secret is like, where will you be in 10 years? Where will you be in 5 years? Where will you be in 20 years? A lot of our guests that we have on, a shocking number really, is they're generational businesses. They're actually not many a times just, all right, I started it 3 years ago, or I started it even 20 years ago. A shocking number have been passed down. And we've had obviously the owners, but we've also had team members on as guests. And I'm just like, all right, that's where it is because they see the little fly by night companies all the time. And they're the ones who are underbidding, they're biting off too much. And they're the same ones who are needing to get with the lawyer a year later or restructure or whatever. It's just a headache. So, yeah, a lot of power to you that you're open to yourself and transparent to the audience because there certainly aren't people like you and they're still just revenue, 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 do what it takes. lie, cheat, steal, whatever you got to do to get by. You just got to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, that's just it. Like you had mentioned fly by nighters. Lots of people ask me day to day, especially like with our clientele or their managers, their superintendents when they come out to do site visits or come to the office and stuff. How did COVID affect the company? On one hand, it
Sure.
didn't. Uh, you know, on the other hand, it affected everything. And I say that because going into COVID, our work never slowed down. Our clients still had projects. We were still going. The thing that changed after COVID, everyone owned a business. Okay.
Interesting.
And yeah,
Huh.
like it got to the point where projects that we would bid on, where we would have, say, 5 licensed demo contractors on the bid list. Now there's close to 50, but there's only 6 of them.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? So,
Wow.
with everyone getting laid off from their jobs,
Okay.
I'll just
Huh.
start a business. And, yeah, like good for you, man. Like that's awesome. You guys can go get it. But they're not really thinking about everything involved. And, me too, the first year of us being in business, there's so much more than just owning a business.
Yeah, it's like owning a successful business where you prosper, your clients prosper, your team's taken care of, and that whole being able to get to sleep at night. And it has like a longevity. Now, it doesn't need to be generational because, like we alluded to earlier, your goal may be to sell it. And then you have to operate the business under those sort of protocols where if you're just going to go, hey, this is generational, your 5-year plan is going to be way different from a cash flow and asset intensive versus something that you say, hey, in 5 years, we do want to sell. That's fascinating. Okay. Because it's funny. I'm in the marketing sphere, advertising world.
Yeah.
We always have a gazillion people hopping up and down. There's Ty Lopez and Grant Cardone and a million gurus to excite people. So even in your business, you guys saw a lot of people pop up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
demo.
Like
That's fascinating.
it was night and day, literally. I had mentioned the company that we work very closely with for that completes all of our asbestos remediation for us. Yeah, like when I say night and day, like COVID ended, and probably about a month after that, that owner that I actually used to work for called me and said, "Have you seen the bid list this week?" And I was like, "Well, yeah. Do you know any of these guys?" "No." "Do you?" "No."
Weird.
And
That's
like
crazy.
you do some research on them, and they have Facebook pages, which is awesome. And they'll have like 5 followers, 10 followers, created.
Mm,
And it's like, I'm not sure that you guys quite know all the logistics, the liabilities, like there's so many working parts to the business itself that people just don't think of or don't seem to care about.
mm,
Everyone's society's vision, I guess, of a business owner is, someone successful and someone that has lots of money. I did that one constantly. Well, you own a business, then you must
mm.
you must be doing well. And it's like, we're in the first 5 years, and lots of people don't
Right.
know that it's a struggle.
Sure.
And it's battle after battle, and everything is going to be against you. But you
Mm,
break through those, and you show both yourself and others what you personally and business wise are capable of. I feel like that's when you can take a step back and go, look what I did.
yeah. No, it's fascinating. And a lot of the team members, like, we have estimators on here listening, and we obviously have people who are owners, contractors, boots on the ground, etc., heavy equipment operators and things. It's funny. I would think, particularly for, let's say, an estimator where they're seeing the numbers. I mean, I know a lot of these guys, and they're thinking, boy, boss is just loaded. Boss, it must be so easy to be the guy at the top. To an extent, yes, but also to an extent, you're sharing and giving some of the light on the realities. Like, I run a business as well, and there are a lot of upsides, definitely, but there are a lot of downsides. And like you said, there is way more risk on top of you that
Oh
will
yeah.
forever continue to mount. I mean, I don't know where the big pie in the sky is for every business. It's different, but it's not like you get to be Mr. and Miss Delegator, at year 6, like you're saying 5 years in. It's not like year 6 turns around and boom, now you're that rich person that everyone aspires to be. Yeah, it does kind of mount and mount. More team members, more equipment, more litigious liability, heavier insurance, that kind of thing. We got a few more minutes. This has been awesome. What else is there to kind of dig in? I'm sure we could be on here for hours and hours, and
Yeah.
I'm open to some more time. But what are some of the little like nails in the coffin, goods, bads, scaries, excitings that you want to share?
I mean, at the end of the day, myself, starting the business, you're gonna want some capital. I'll tell you that.
Mhm.
I started this with a pickup truck and $20 in my pocket, and
Whoa.
I can tell you, it's definitely not easy.
Mm.
Learn from that mistake. Was there any reasoning behind me not acquiring, formal investing? The investment world as for company ownership is definitely a whole new episode on the podcast, but I told myself that if I needed to use someone else's money, then it wasn't the right path for me. And
Interesting.
that's just what I have told myself. I'm not saying that's going to work for anybody else. And, in a roundabout way, it took a long time for it to work for me. But, I don't claim to be a self-made high horse. It's just I've worked very hard, and in the end, I was told a lot. Hard work pays off, and it does, but it's going to be a lot more hard work than you think. So,
Mm.
if someone is starting out in the industry, and you got the contacts, you got the clients, in a roundabout way, I would suggest maybe freeing up some capital somewhere or getting a capital investment. Different investment options work for different people, just as different cars work for different people, right? There's so many
Sure.
options out there in the investment world for business ownership. So many different ways you can go about it. You got partnerships, sole proprietorship, you got capital investment, you got angel investing, right? And so you really got to sit down and look at the company as a whole. And like you said, like, what are your goals with the company? Are you looking to just quick flip the company in a couple of years? Is this your lifetime? Because all that, how much are you going to need? How much, you think you need this much, well, double it, I'll tell you that.
And some.
Especially starting out, it goes fast, and yeah, it's a lot of work and a lot of investment of time and yourself, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And
Yeah.
that's something nobody can take from me.
Yeah, I had a feeling you're gonna say that. Like that exact line of, I wouldn't change it for the world kind of thing. So yeah, I really do look at the business end and say, hey, obviously you were and you are extremely capable. You had a great job and a successful career before this, as did I. And for me personally, I just look at it and I go, I don't want to have to work until 70. I want to choose to work until 70 under my rules for better or worse, and there's a lot of hell to pay for that in certain instances. There is a price of admission, and it's way worse, that price, than in certain people's outlooks of what it could be or what it is. But to me, the ultimate price is to have to, be a 60-year-old person and have a boss that's 40 years old because they have a certain degree or because they know the owner of the company or whatever. And me at 60 having to ask that 40-year-old boss, or God forbid, a 30-year-old boss, say, hey, can I take 5 days off so I could spend it with my family? It's like, you're a 60-year-old adult. And I know, like, maybe I'm spoiled in that sense, but I've earned that ability to not jive with that. And obviously you're putting your foot forward so you can do that too.
That's just it. Like, you'll, like, me personally, I had a lot of close friends. Are you going to that party Friday? Are you going to this Saturday? It's like, no, I'm working. And lots of people will not understand that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and it's not an easy animal to tame.
No.
It requires a lot of time. And for the people, I'm not saying dispose of any memory making activity ever for the next 5 years, but you're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices, and that's just the nature of the beast.
And to me, that ultimate sacrifice, because you're totally right, spot on, I just try to view it earlier on and say, hey, what's more of a sacrifice? Me dedicating some of my 20s and 30s, or me dedicating, while it's not the deeper dedication, like this is the entrepreneurial, but I'm doing that for what, a decade, maybe two?
Yeah.
And these other people, they're not having to go like this, they're going like this and only going to that depth. But like for 70 years, or in certain cases, depending on economics and, countries and things like that, you may have to work until you die. Like here in America, it's even if you're successful, stuff is so litigious and so tight, and good employees cost a lot of money. People think of Amazon, they want everything to be perfect and right on time, and you can do your best, but that is kind of fascinating. So you and I are both willing to pay that price, so that way we don't have to pay it the way that I guess general society pays it, but we certainly pay pretty royally. Any last bit that you want to kind of send off with the audience and kind of give them Chris's last few bits?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're capable of anything if you set your mind to it. If I could, if people, I have a very different mindset as compared to a lot of people. I can credit Gary Vee for that. We used to watch a lot of his videos, and he's
immigrant too, right? Serbia, was it?
V Media,
yeah.
So he's
Dad's liquor store.
Yep. I used to listen to his podcast religiously every day, so that got me through a lot of the hurdles that I ran into myself. But besides that, do what you love. You can go out and start a business, and you might find out that you don't even love doing that anymore as a business, and that's very possible. But find what you truly love and do it, because life's too short.
Yeah, no, perfectly said. And your first business isn't necessarily going to be your last business, so it's okay to fail. It's okay to be honest with your clients, like you were. A lot of people wouldn't have been adult enough to confront that stuff. They would have just let it eat them from the inside out.
Yeah,
spend a lot of time at the bar, or a lot of time trying to travel and get their head off it when they really just need to be real. Like, we're all humans at the end of the day. Well, cool, man. This has been awesome, Chris. So I'm going to sign us off. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to Chris. And this has been another episode.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.